So Katie, first of all, this issue of not being able to detect tumours in women who are overweight and obese as early as other women who are not.
That's right. So basically what they did is they followed women in Sweden, and they found that women who had BMIs or body mass indexes over the number of 25, which is overweight or obese, they were more likely to be detecting in them tumours that were more than 2 centimetres or greater than the size of a peanut. And the problem with that is that it takes them into stage 3 breast cancer rather than stage 2. Now, they're not sure really if it's a matter of these women have larger breasts and therefore it's harder to find the tumours, so they find them later, or if the tumours are growing faster in these women. So they're going for their regular, in Sweden it's every 18 to 24 months, they're going for their regular screenings and they're just not finding them because they're not existing at that screening, but they're existing later on because they're growing so much quicker.
And so what advice are doctors giving?
Well, the researchers, they suggest that maybe we should be thinking about giving overweight women more regular screenings and that it should be seen as a risk factor. So, for example, they already give more regular screenings to people who have a history of breast cancer in their families. So maybe overweight women should be receiving more regular screenings. But the jury's still out whether or not that's a good idea, because if you find out, for example, you have a tumour but it's not particularly problematic, it can have psychological impacts as well.
Of course, which leads us to this next study, this Malaysian study that was done about, the number of cancer survivors who were left with PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder.
It's shocking, isn't it? So what they did in Malaysia and Kuala Lumpur is they followed one specific centre and they looked at patients and they examined how likely they were to have PTSD. And they looked at them 6 months and then 4 years after being diagnosed. 6 months later, up to a fifth of them were likely to suffer from PTSD. And you can imagine all of the horrific things that one has to go through when they get cancer. The treatment, the feeling that you might lose your life, the rethinking of your future. And then they followed them up, and 4 years on, a third of these people were still likely to be suffering some form of PTSD. And results here in the UK, they haven't studied PTSD specifically, but it looks similar. It's a pattern that's probably global. And it just shows really that, you might have recovered, you might be in remission, your cancer might be healed, but the psychological impacts can stick with you.
Indeed, because it's a life-altering thing that happens. Kate